The Speaker defended his decision, saying the tapes belong to the American public. Anne-Marie?
Scott, I am absolutely without words.
Welcome to this week's Wacky Moments of Leftist Extremism. The leftist media was very upset with Tucker Carlson this week because he showed some video from January 6th that was handed over by Speaker Kevin McCarthy. And that video didn't 100% support Pelosi's handpicked January 6th committee narrative.
The Speaker defended his decision, saying the tapes belong to the American public. Anne-Marie?
Scott, I am absolutely without words. I mean, we have these convictions. They're based on evidence.
Just not all of the evidence that could have been made available. And for presenting that video evidence, some in the media want the Justice Department to go after Tucker.
I have a question. I have a question. How come this is not thought of as being recruiting? How come they're not thinking about this as radicalizing? Why is this not being scrutinized the way that they scrutinize other things? Because to me, this should be against the law.
Yeah, showing video that the left doesn't agree with should be against the law. It should be investigated as domestic terrorism. You just gotta love that ABC News Division programming. Because when left-wing terrorists attack police and start fires at a construction site at a police training center in Atlanta, well, ABC just calls that foolishness.
They're fighting to save the woods that the police training center would replace, but also saying they're trying to keep police from militarizing. This has put local civil rights groups in a strange position where they agree with the idea of not trying to militarize the police, but are also trying not to support any foolishness.
You wouldn't want to support any of that foolishness, those silly Molotov cocktails and fireworks thrown at police by Antifa and other domestic terrorists.
Foolishness.
Neither ABC, CBS, nor NBC could be bothered to mention that Tom Jurgens of the Southern Poverty Law Center was one of the thugs that was arrested in the riots and charged with, well, no, not charged with foolishness, but domestic terrorism. Which is weird because, you know, usually the media just loves talking about the leftist SPLC and their labeling of all things non-socialist as hate groups.
How extensive is the penetration of white supremacists and white nationalists, per the data that Southern Poverty Law Center has done, into the Republican Party?
A great question about penetration from an MSNBC anchor who's flanked by a Democrat who had a relationship with a Chinese spy. Speaking of spreading hate and lies, let's continue with Joy Reid on Tuesday when she claimed,
"If it ain't white, it ain't right," in DeSantis' stand.
Wow, she's screaming racist again. I mean, I wonder what could get her so upset.
Republicans have a supermajority in the state legislature and are set to pass a full slate of repressive laws on the governor's wish list. If you're a teacher, you can't talk about gender identity with students from the 3rd grade to the 8th grade. You are not allowed to use any pronoun except the one you were assigned at birth.
Well now, proper pronoun use in schools, imagine that. So terribly upsetting. I mean, what could be worse than proper grammar being used in schools? But she's got more.
School board positions would go from nonpartisan to partisan, clearly to benefit Republicans.
I guess letting people know that you're a Democrat would hurt your election to the school board somehow?
There's a separate bill that would force anyone who writes about public figures and gets paid for it to register with the government.
She's actually right in what she has to say here. There is such a bill, but why that image of DeSantis? He actually has nothing to do with the bill proposed.
You know, every person in the legislature can file bills, right? I see these people filing bills, and then there's articles with my face on the article saying that, oh, they're going to have to, bloggers are going to have to register for the state, and it's like attributing it to me. And I'm like, okay, that's not anything that I've ever supported. I don't support.
MSNBC certainly wouldn't mislead its viewers on DeSantis, huh? I mean, that's why on Wednesday, in their own strange obsession with the Florida governor, they called DeSantis a fascist in their strangely obsessive DeSantis World segment.
What I don't get, it's like the ultimate gaslighting to basically be steamrolling fascist policies into the state and doing so under the banner of freedom and rights. Well, that's what I don't get. How is this being made palatable to people who understand what fascism and authoritarianism are and and the fact that it's a rising dark tide across the globe, and then see it at home as it's being presented under the auspices of, you know, reasserting your individual rights. How can they possibly be packaging it as such? Totalitarian menace.
Yeah. It licenses this unbelievable barrage of illiberalism.
Yeah, literally in the phrase of one of the bills is "don't say."
The law literally does not say that anywhere. But hey, don't look to MSNBC if you want to find a fact. They just want to call people fascists, even if they don't know their names.
Well, look what Rick DeSantis has done in Florida. He was known as sort of a nondescript political leader, member of Congress. Suddenly, he really has tried to turn himself into sort of a local Mussolini in Florida.
Well, thank goodness he's talking about Rick DeSantis and not Ron, because if he was saying it about Ron, I would have to say that MSNBC just outright lies. Much like the leftist media does, as they breathlessly report on Biden's proposed budget.
President Biden today in the key battleground state of Pennsylvania, unveiling a blueprint for his re-election campaign, a $6.8 trillion budget that would slash the deficit by $3 trillion over the next decade.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't slash the deficit at all.
For every dollar the federal government takes in, we spend $1.29. Under CBO's new projection, that number will go up to average $1.34 over the next 10 years. This is a spending problem, not a revenue problem.
It's definitely not a revenue problem under tax-happy Biden, but there doesn't seem to be much that the media won't lie about to protect the left. It gets to the point that you just have to sit back and laugh out loud at their willing ignorance.
Now, I disagree vehemently with Tucker Carlson's assessment of bias in the New York Times. It is not a liberal paper. New York Times. It is not a liberal paper. It is not a liberal paper.
Yeah, sure it's not. I'm Eric Scheider from MRCTV, asking you to visit the MRC homepage, make a donation to help us keep videos like this one coming. Visit MRCTV.org for the latest in videos, information, and entertainment. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe to us on the social media platforms that let you see us. You can always trust Rumble. And next week, we'll be back, and we'll likely make Chris Hayes make this face again.